Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Debbie Deno, and today I wanted to tell you a little bit about one of the techniques that I use, mind, body, spirit release. So here at Path to Heal, we believe in balancing the body, mind, body, spirit. And so we use techniques to address that. So, like for example, for the body, we use chiropractic care, we do soft tissue techniques, we do nervous system regulation types of techniques, like breath work, including mind, body, spirit release. It can help balance the nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and repair. But we have programs that teach you how using breath work to reset your nervous system, all kinds of techniques like that. In office, I've got some things as well. Now, as far as more of a chemical portion of that, we use detox programs. We customize programs for people based on their needs, their genetics, their medical history, things like that. And now we get to the emotional, just what we're going to talk about today, and specifically a technique called mind, body, spirit release. And you'll see some movement. That's George here in the background. He likes to be in whenever I'm working. So, coming back to mind, body, spirit release, it utilizes the concepts that physical and emotional trauma gets stored in the body. And that is certainly stored in our nervous system. But over the last 10 to 20 years, researchers have learned a lot about fascia and organs, how we actually trap trauma and emotional memories, that the memory and everything that occurred along with that event can get stored not only in our nervous system but in our fascia. And what is our fascia? Our fascia is that connective tissue that surrounds all of our organs. It surrounds our bones, our muscles, our ligaments, our tendons, our nerves. It's that stuff. If you've ever cut up a chicken or an animal for food, you know there's this white filmy stuff. And I'll try and post a video too that gives you an idea about fascia. So we can store trauma there. We can store toxins and inflammation, and some of those toxins can be emotions. Again, I mentioned that researchers have also found that organs tend to store emotions. And the reason for that is it's actually chemistry and physics, the idea that we are made up of elements and every element moves and vibrates at a particular frequency. Well, we are made up of those elements. So, in essence, we are an energetic, vibrating creature. And depending on how our health is, we might be operating at a very high vibration, or if we're not feeling so well, physically, emotionally, chemically, we can be operating in a very low emotion. But science has shown us that each organ has a particular kind of frequency, emotions, things, an energetic signature. So, like, for example, the liver, it's full of blood. It does all of these detoxification things. And it can be a place where we hold rage and anger, whereas our kidneys and our bladder can be areas where we hold fear. All right. So those are some general categories. But then, like I said, each one of us has had specific trauma, specific events go on in our life. And I just heard a great podcast the other day talking about how even at the time of our conception, that whatever was going on in mom and dad, right? That becomes part of our new DNA. During the first few months of our development, again, everything that's responding that's going on inside of our mother. And that's not to lay any kind of blame or shame on our parents for these things, but realize that we are constantly exposed to physical, emotional, chemical toxins. And that began even before we were born. Okay, so in summary, all the trauma we're exposed to is retained in memory. that can be in our tissues, that can be in our nervous system and our brain. And if any of those things have created a block for an organ, a system, a chemical process, those neurologic pathways can be reset in the fascia and the tissues in the nervous system. And there are several techniques that do that. There's a chiropractic technique called neuro-emotional technique, another one called bioenergetic or BEST. There are just in general, chiropractic and body work and energy work can release emotions. Even exercise and fascial soft tissue work can release tension. I happen to use a technique called mind, body, spirit release, and it was developed by a naturopath, Dr. Tracy Southwick, in Houston, Texas. So we're going to basically show you today what a session would look like. And we're going to use me. And there are lots of, I guess you'd say, things that we can look for. But today I want to show you this process using the drainage funnel. And maybe you've already been a client of mine and you've heard about the drainage funnel. The drainage funnel is those pathways, those organs that are responsible for draining waste products and toxins from the body. And so the ones that we find the most trouble in are the colon, pooping, the liver, making bile and breaking down toxins and releasing those in the bile. We've got the lymphatic system, and we have lymph vessels around every tissue and organ in the body. We've got the kidneys, we've got the lungs, and we've got the skin. So multiple pathways. All right. So at any point that where those things are blocked, we want to unblock them. So I'm going to do a session with me. It's been a minute since I've done one on me, and you guys get to sit through that process. So the first thing that I do whenever I do a mind, body, spirit release session is I set an intention. And the reason for that is when we test and evaluate someone, we're using muscle testing. We're exposing their body to a stressor and seeing how their nervous system responds. If it stays strong during that muscle test, that indicates that that stressor really isn't an issue for the body. The body remains in balance or homeostasis. But if we expose the body to a stressor, and it goes weak during a muscle test, that lets us know that that dysregulates the nervous system. There's an issue there. So I use muscle testing to evaluate those kind of stressors. Today, we're going to be looking at the drainage pathway. So we're going to check mitochondria, cellular function, and the ability for the cells to drain, lymphatics. We're going to check liver and colon. Okay. So I use a muscle test. If I have patients with me, they'll hold out an arm and we'll find a strong muscle to indicate the nervous system is balanced, expose it to a stressor, see what happens. But for me today, for me to self-test, I'm going to use my fingers, something called a ring test. So I put my fingers together and I'm holding. So a yes response looks like this. Give me a clear yes. It's strong and it holds no matter how long I hold that. Okay. Give me a clear no answer. And then no matter how many times I do this, no, it's weak. Okay. So I've trained my nervous system what a yes is and what a no is. I do the same thing with clients when I do an arm test. And so that's going to be my evaluation. So what we're going to start with is setting an intention. So I'm going to share my screen just a minute here to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. But basically, when I set an intention, I talk to a patient about their goals. And so my intention for this session, this MBSR session, is I want to identify those toxins or things that are creating inflammation and or upsetting the nervous system. I want regulation. So there's kind of three types of intentions I might talk to you about in a session. One of the things that we can look at is how you'd like to feel, how you'd like to operate in your life and experience life and living in your body over the next, let's say, 30 to 60 days. Okay, so that's one option. Another option is maybe you realize I have been attached to a diagnosis and I want to release all physical, chemical, emotional, spiritual blocks that are holding me back from healing from that. Or lastly, we can clear emotional blocks and trauma from an event. Well, today I'm going to use this one. And so for me, my intention is that I am now at all times, on all levels, and with grace and ease, a peaceful, balanced, strong, and vibrantly healthy woman. Okay. So that's going to be my intention for this testing. We'll get rid of these others. Oops. Now, let me go through some of the other parts of the intention so you can see why I have those in there. I am now at all times and on all levels. That takes in that mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and with grace and ease. I want to set an intention for those things that I am capable and ready to release at this time, things that are slowing my healing from being a peaceful, balanced, strong, and vibrantly healthy woman. But I love this part too. My mind, body, and spirit are kept in perfect, peaceful harmony without any adverse effects from this clearing. When we release toxicity, we oftentimes release inflammation. And so I like to go low and slow with things. I don't want to ever try and rush somebody's detox, including from emotional toxicity. So I'm asking as I begin to muscle test, basically, what do I, Debbie, need to release in order to be this and to have the least amount of detox side effects from all of that? Okay, so that is our intention. Then I begin, and so I will muscle test and I will say, based on Debbie's intention. Now, I'm going to use the word Debbie. I know I'm talking about myself, but in this case, I'm going to show you how I work with a client. So, based on this intent, Debbie's intention, and what's for her greatest and highest good, would it benefit her to have a clearing today? Yes. Do I have permission to do an evaluation and clearing? And the answer is yes. So that's how I start. I answer questions. I usually have sent a person who's scheduled a session some information about the technique so that they can lessen some of their concerns. One of the things I will tell you is MBSR is not therapy. It's not talk therapy. I am just identifying those neurologic patterns that have some emotional blockages or those tissues and areas in the body where there are emotional blockages, and we reset those. And so I tell people a lot of times it's like if you have apps open on your phone, right? You have apps open on your phone. Well, we want to clear those. We want to reset those. Or imagine we're giving an update to your nervous system. So we got to identify the blocks first. Okay, I'm just going to finish closing these 37 tabs on my phone because what happens when you've got a bunch of tabs and apps open on your phone? It drains your battery. Well, I think that that's a good analogy to what's happening. These emotional blocks are preventing our organs, our tissues, our nervous system from optimizing and functioning at its highest level. And it's draining the life of you. And all of this is happening in the background. We aren't even consciously aware of it. Okay, so here we go. Again, one more time. Based on Debbie's intention and what it's for her greatest and highest good, do I have permission? Yes. All right. So we're going to begin. And I'm just going to start with we need to release blocks related to the drainage funnel. And the answer was yes. So I'm going to start with mitochondria. Mitochondria are those little things within our cells that we all learned probably in high school science that those are our energy factories. And you'd think we've got like one or two a cell, and that's actually not the truth. We've got on average, that means there's less, and then that means there's a lot more. 2,000 mitochondria per cell. Now, mitochondria do way much more than make energy. Um, because if that's all they did, we'd have plenty, right? We'd have plenty of energy, and most of us do not. So mitochondria have lots of functions. One of them is detoxification. One of them is creating and releasing chemicals from our cells that signal our immune system what to do. So lots of stuff. But basically, if I were to focus on what a mitochondria does, it creates chemicals, products that stimulate our cells and our body systems. So whatever that cell makes, if I'm a muscle cell, I'm going to make glycogen, let's say, or if I'm a pancreas cell, I'm going to make insulin in the mitochondria. If I'm a neuron that makes dopamine, I make dopamine. That process starts in our mitochondria. So mitochondria make stuff. They also signal cells that are responsible whenever we have an injury or trauma. So they create inflammation and signal our immune system cells, create chemicals that signal our immune system cells. That's the gist of them. So let's clear any blocks in the mitochondria. And then there's some common ones that can happen. So I'm going to test those first. What I want is unavailable to me. So we're going to look for blocks. Is what I want is unavailable to me? Is that a block that needs to be cleared? The answer was yes. And so then I can see what I want is unavailable to me. And what might that be? Resources, time. So I'm going to circle that. Money, support, desire. We could identify more of those if the client wants, but this is a limiting belief. What I want is unavailable to me. So certainly we need to release that blockage so that as nutrients are delivered to the body, they can be used by our cells and by our mitochondria. Now, there's also some emotional blocks that can occur with this. And so, based on Debbie's intention and this limiting belief, does she need to release desperation, helplessness? Helplessness was a yes, desperation was a no, perfectionism, unsupported. So, what we're going to do today is release any blocks associated with this limiting belief. What I want is unavailable to me. And we're going to release blocks associated with helplessness and perfectionism. Okay. All right. Then from here, I can also ask if there's additional emotions that need to be released today. Nope. I'm just going to go through a list. Are there any mixed vials? Nope. Are there any miscellaneous blocks? Any additional limiting beliefs? Any hormone blocks? And the answer was yes on that. So we're going to go through our list and find out, is there one hormone block? Two? One. Okay. So there's going to be one. Now I've got a list, so I'm going to ask, is that hormone blockage, is that in column one? Yes. The answer was yes. Is it between my fingers? Nope. Is it between my fingers? Is it between my fingers? Yes. Is it between my fingers? And for me, that hormone is DHEA. Now, DHEA is a precursor to serotonin, some of our happy juice, our neurotransmitter, and it actually acts as a hormone that all of our tissues respond to. But as far as our nervous system goes, it's really important for making that happy sensation. Now, are there any neurotransmitters? Nope. Are there any additional organs, glands, or tissues? And the answer was yes. So I'm just writing some things down. Is there one tissue that needs to be cleared? Two. There's just one. Is it in column one? Column two? Is it between my fingers? Yes. Is it between my fingers? And it's my gallbladder. Now, I actually don't have a gallbladder, but if you've ever heard of phantom pain, you know that people who've had a leg amputated, things like that, they still feel that sensation. The nervous system did not update following that, whatever that initial trauma was, that thing is gone. And so it's constantly sending signals, trying to talk to it. So even when you've had an organ release, that doesn't mean that your nervous system doesn't still have a block somewhere associated with that organ. And the gallbladder tends to hold certain emotions. So I'm going to go through here and check. So for me, gallbladder, and that includes the emotion of pride. Now, I tell folks sometimes when you are going through this clearing, different emotions, maybe different events, any disresonance or angst between you and another person can be revealed. And sometimes people are like, oh, Debbie, you said that word. I know exactly what we're talking about. I remember exactly. Other times people are like, no, that doesn't really resonate with me. And I say, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen today is I'm doing a clearing to release any blockages associated with ever feeling helplessness, perfectionism, pride. How bad can that be? Right? Even if I'm not consciously aware of them. But let's do just a little bit more. Let me check. Are there any additional body systems? No. Okay, so this is what we're left with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my vials that correlate to the signature, the energetic signature for those tissues or for those emotions. So I've got my mitochondria one. I've got my gallbladder one and picking out some of these emotional vials. So for me, I need to have both hands free while I muscle test. So I'm just going to put them in my pocket. If I were testing on a patient here in person, I would have them hold the vials. And so then any technique that works like MBSR, and there are others. Emotion code is another one, like I mentioned, NET. There's always has to be some kind of input into the nervous system. So it's like we're most of you don't remember VHS tapes, but it's like we are erasing well, not erasing, we are taping a new pathway so that when your body says, hey, gallbladder, how is it today? Or how should a system like my mitochondria function? It's going to not have this speed bump, not have this blockage in the way. Okay. So we have to put some kind of input in. I happen to use a red light laser. So you can see the light there. And partly because laser therapy is really great for the nervous system because it has a lot of frequency, a lot of input. Some people do tapping, and oftentimes, if I'm doing a clearing virtually, so I'm using my body to test for them, I will still have them maybe tap on these organs or some of these nerve points that I'm using to reset this emotional block. But in my case, I'm here, I'm going to use the laser. So I've got the vials in my pocket, what we identified as stressors. And so we're just going to begin. So I oftentimes express gratitude. I'm so grateful that, and I use the patient's name, that Debbie is now at all times, on all levels, and with grace and ease, a peaceful, balanced, strong, and vibrantly healthy woman. Her mind, body, and spirit are kept in perfect, peaceful harmony without any adverse effects from this clearing. She knows all of this to be true, and for all of this, we are grateful. So I would hold those blocks up close to the patient, those vials that we identify. In my case, like I said, they're in my pocket. And we are going to, in this case, I can actually, now that we're done muscle testing, I can hold those. And I'm going to hold those next to the body. And we're going to go over some points. Now, there are certain neurologic points that tend to, so we're exposing the nervous system to these vials that have previously been an issue. Those frequencies correlate with those emotions that have been a block or an issue. And we're putting some new stimuli in, a much higher vibration, so that that body can update, hey, this is no longer a threat. Now, I'm going over some points that go, again, have to do with neurologic points or acupuncture points related to the nervous system. And for each client, these can vary depending on what we're clearing. But in my case, we want to correlate to some of these nervous system points. And I also ask that if a patient's having pain in any area, that we also check and evaluate if there's any emotions associated with that. So that's another thing that we can do. We can also test and release emotional blocks related to trauma that has resulted in a scar Scars do a lot to limit nerve and blood flow. Okay, I've got a few other points to check. And again, exposing the nervous system, those things that it perceived as a problem, and then adding a higher frequency and updating that neural pathway. And again, I could have done tapping. Other people use magnets. I just find the lasers faster. That's why I use it. And I'm also going to go over the liver area. Even though I don't have a gallbladder still, I still have a liver. And whatever caused the gallbladder disease is really, it starts in the liver. So we're going to run the laser over that area, releasing any of these blocks. And then we're going to test again. So I'm going to test each vial to make sure that they're strong, testing each emotion. Um, Debbie needs to clear blocks related to what I want is unavailable to me. That now test is no. So that has been cleared. Helplessness, perfectionism, DHEA, gallbladder, pride. Okay, then I would ask, um, do I need to acclimate? Sometimes I will have patients hold on to the test vials or think about an affirmation or some, if they were experiencing a lot of rage and anger, maybe an opposite emotion, love. What is lovely about them? Things like that. And so they sometimes we acclimate to these frequencies for a while. So I'm going to test. Do I need to acclimate? Yes. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I'm going to put these again, if they were, if a patient was here physically with me, I would put them on their body, maybe while they're laying on the table. In my case, I'm going to put them in the pocket and I'm going to say, Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes. And we would move on that while the body's kind of cooking with this information. Then we would identify action steps. And I know this is kind of a long video, but I want you to see exactly what happens, partly because it releases some of the fear people have. Oh no, what's Debbie going to find? First off, I'm not going to find out your deep, dark secrets. I'm just going to test and find what are the blockages that the body's able to clear today. And then number two, what we're getting ready to do now, what action steps can help reinforce this change? It is so much easier for the nervous system to go back to the way it was, or for us to go back to limiting beliefs, to go back to patterns that help create some of this toxicity or blockages than it is to do something new. We all know this. You start to exercise. Well, one exercise session doesn't fix all of your issues, right? You have to keep and reinforcing it, right? So that's what we're going to test for. So would Debbie benefit from some action steps? The answer is yes. We always want to get permission from the body. And I'm going to ask, is that one, two? There's one. Is it journaling? Is it the Ho'oponopono prayer? Okay. So for me, it's the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'll also post an image of that along with the video, but basically it's statements using forgiveness, not to agree with trauma or hurt that's happened to us. But when we forgive, we are releasing the connection to that person, to that event. So that could be super, super, super powerful. So that would be a good action step for me. And then would I benefit from an energy clearing bath? That's always one that I ask about. And an energy clearing bath is taking, depending on how much water you use, anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 cups of Epsom salts in a warm, hot water bath, whatever's comfortable for you. I like to put in a couple drops of lavender, whatever essential oils that you might like, and soak in that for about 10 to 20 minutes. Or if you do not have a bathtub or you don't really like baths, you feel like you don't have time for one, I will also sometimes take half a cup of Epsom salts, maybe add a little baking soda, whatever, my essential oils, and I will add liquid coconut oil, organic coconut oil to it, mix that up, and it makes like a salt scrub. And so I will cleanse my body, whatever. Oftentimes I do these when I'm washing my hair and conditioning or putting a conditioning treatment on my hair. And I will put this on my body after I've washed it, scrub, exfoliate, and then I mess with my hair and I'll condition it, shave my legs, whatever, and let that Epsom salt scrubs sit on the body because Epsom salts help draw inflammation, help draw toxicity out. And at the very least, they open up lymph channels so that this junk can get dropped into our lymph and get run through our liver or our kidneys, and our body will help eliminate those toxins through pee, through sweat, through things like that later on in the day. So, an energy clearing bath would benefit me as well. And would I benefit from another treatment on this intention? The answer is yes. So I could work through other layers of the drainage funnel. Next, I would check intestines and then liver and things like that. So would I benefit from that clearing in 1 day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 days? If oftentimes it's closer to several weeks, but this is an intention I'm going to be working on a bit. So the body wants to release things in layers. So that's what a session looks like. Um, we'll reschedule you if there's additional work that needs to be done on this, support you with action steps so you can make those changes that help reinforce and establish this change for the body. So I hope you've enjoyed. Sorry, this was kind of a long video, but you've seen now what a session can look like, and minus all the education and explanation. Um, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. I'll also include a link if you want to schedule your own MBSR session. And thanks so much for walking. George and I say bye. See you next time.